Love real-life stories and enjoy a little justice served, hit that subscribe button and give this a like. And drop a comment telling me which city you're listening from. I love seeing how far my words travel. Now, sit back and enjoy the story.
Hartsfield-Jackson buzzed like a stirred-up hive. That sound always hit me two ways. On one side, the thrill of departure. On the other, a quiet, barely there unease, the kind that creeps up on women my age who've spent a lifetime keeping every detail under control. I stood slightly apart from the check-in counter, clutching my leather portfolio to my chest. Inside were 5 passports and printouts that had cost me half a year's returns from my modest investment portfolio. The Maldives, Azure Bay Resort. Not just any hotel, a private members club. I'd been planning it for 6 months. Officially, a gift to my grandchildren for their school break. Unofficially, my milestone birthday, 65 years. I didn't want banquets, toasts, or the fake smiles of distant relatives. I wanted the ocean, the quiet, and my family by my side. I'd paid for everything. Business class flights, seaplane transfers, an overwater villa with a private pool. I wanted Deshaun, my son, to feel like a king. I wanted his wife Keisha to finally stop complaining about being tired. But standing here now, under the cold fluorescent light of the terminal, the air around us felt heavy, like the moment before a storm breaks. Deshaun was a few feet away, scrolling through his phone. He kept shifting his weight from foot to foot, tugging at his collar. He'd been avoiding my eyes since morning when the car came to pick us all up. I wrote it off as travel nerves. Men get anxious before flights, even when they won't admit it. Keisha was another story. She was whispering. She stood close to her mother, Miss Loretta, speaking in quick, heated bursts, hand cupped over her mouth. Miss Loretta, my son's mother-in-law, a loud, vivid woman who loved leopard print and gold jewelry that clinked with every step. Her presence here was a mystery to me. I hadn't invited her. My plan had 5 people: me, Deshaun, Keisha, and the twins. When Miss Loretta appeared at the terminal entrance dragging an oversized rolling suitcase, I assumed she'd come to see her family off. That was her style. Stir up a fuss, shed a few tears, hand out a pile of unsolicited advice. But the suitcase was too large for a send-off, and the luggage tag read Priority, Claudette May Johnson. Keisha's voice pulled me out of my thoughts. She was smiling, but her eyes stayed cool and calculating. She wore an expensive beige suit, the one I suspected had been bought with money I'd wired Deshaun for business development. Time to go. Check-in's open. We moved toward the counter. The twins, 7-year-old Malik and Zora, darted around the suitcases, oblivious to the tension crackling between the adults. I felt a cold knot forming in my chest. The instinct I'd sharpened over years as a CFO was screaming, "Something's off, check the assets." But I pushed it down. This was family, my son, my blood. The gate agent, perfectly poised in her uniform, looked up at us. "Good afternoon. Passports, please."
I stepped forward, reaching for the documents in my portfolio, but Keisha moved faster. She slid smoothly between me and the counter, catching me with her shoulder, as if by accident. "Here you go," she said sweetly, laying a stack of passports on the counter. I froze. I counted only 4 booklets. My passport was still in my folder. The 5th document Keisha slid across with a triumphant smile was Miss Loretta's. "Keisha," I said quietly. My voice didn't shake, but something inside me dropped straight to the floor. "You've mixed them up. That's your mother's passport. Mine is right here." Keisha turned slowly to face me. Her expression shifted to sorrowful sympathy, the kind people put on when delivering news about a relative's passing after they've already started eyeing the inheritance. "Oh, Miss Claudette, Mom." She only called me that when she wanted something. We talked it over. We decided it would be better if Miss Loretta came instead. The terminal was loud around us. A boarding call for Dubai echoed overhead. Someone laughed. A child was crying. But for me, there was only vacuum silence. "Better how?" I asked, looking not at her but at my son. Deshaun was staring at the floor, studying the tips of his expensive shoes. "You understand." Keisha lowered her voice, performing concern for my dignity. "It's a long flight, 9 hours, your blood pressure. Last month you mentioned migraines, and the heat, the humidity. Doctors really don't recommend climate extremes at your age." "My blood pressure is fine," I said, each word precise. "And it's my birthday." "Exactly," Miss Loretta jumped in, adjusting her heavy necklace. "Claudette, honey, why put yourself through all that? Stay home, rest, watch your shows, and I'll help with the grandkids. You know they've gotten so close to me lately. Malik said just yesterday he wanted Grandma Loretta to come." She was lying. I could see it in the way the twins had gone still, feeling the current in the room. "Deshaun." I said his name like a final argument, a demand. He finally lifted his head, and in his eyes I saw the thing I had spent his whole life hoping never to see: cowardice. He was my creation, my project, the person I had poured everything into, but somewhere along the way I had made a fatal error. He was not a man. He was an extension of his wife's ambitions. "Mom, come on." He shrugged, mumbling. "Keisha's right. It'll be rough on you, and Miss Loretta has energy. The kids have more fun with her. Don't be upset, okay? We'll bring you back a souvenir. It's just better for everyone this way." For everyone. I looked at them, Keisha barely containing a victorious smirk, Miss Loretta already mentally trying on my villa, Deshaun who had traded me in for a quiet bedroom. They'd planned it all. They knew I'd already paid. They knew I wouldn't cause a scene in public. They were counting on my upbringing, my pride, my habit of swallowing insults quietly rather than airing private business in front of strangers. They thought I was an ATM with a grandmother function. I exhaled slowly. The anger that might have made another woman shout and storm had transformed inside me into cold clarity. It was the same feeling I got before closing a losing branch. The pity evaporated. What remained was pure accounting. "Understood," I said calmly, so calmly that Keisha actually blinked. I opened the portfolio and drew out the booking confirmations, hotel, transfers, insurance, the whole package they needed to get anywhere at all. "Here are the vouchers." I placed the papers beside Miss Loretta's passport. "Since you've made your decision, I won't stand in the way." "You're amazing, Mom," Deshaun exhaled with relief and leaned in to kiss my cheek. I took a small, barely visible step back. "Safe travels," I said. I turned and walked toward the exit. Behind me, I heard Keisha laugh softly. "See, I told you she'd come around. Old folks need their peace and quiet." I moved through the crowd, spine straight as a rod. The glass doors slid apart and released a breath of warm air. I didn't call a car. Instead, I reached for my phone. I scrolled to a number I hadn't used in 3 years. Marcus Wells, private banker. 1 ring. 2. "Claudette May?" A surprised, slightly raspy voice. "Didn't expect to hear from you. Good to have you back." "Hello, Marcus," I said, watching a jet climb above Hartsfield-Jackson. "You remember the protocol we discussed, the golden parachute for if I ever decided to restructure my family asset strategy completely." "Of course, you said it was a last resort."
"The time has come, Marcus. Activate the protocol. Yes, right now. They're going through passport control as we speak." I ended the call and smiled for the first time that hour. For real.
I didn't go home. Instead, I took the escalator up to the second level of the terminal, to the bar with panoramic windows where business travelers kill time before long-haul flights. I settled at a table right against the glass. From here, the runway stretched out like a circuit board, every light and line in its proper place. Unlike my family. 2 fingers of Hennessy, I told the server. He glanced at my sharp gray coat, nodded, and disappeared. I watched the wide-body jet, currently carrying my son, my daughter-in-law, and her triumphant mother, ease slowly toward the runway. They were probably already unbuckling, anticipating champagne. Deshaun would have stretched his legs into the aisle. He always did that, as though the rules only applied to economy. The server set down a round-bellied glass. The amber liquid caught the glow of the airfield lights. I took a sip. Warmth spread across my chest, but it didn't melt the cold crystal that had formed there half an hour ago. I pulled out my phone. The private Capital app loaded instantly, welcoming me with a sleek black interface. For years, I had lied to myself. I called it support, a startup, helping a young family get on its feet. I had let Deshaun believe his consulting firm was a genuine success, but the only real client that firm had ever had was me. I had run fictional consulting fees through his accounts, paid for non-existent reports, just so he could feel like a provider, a man who earned his keep. His platinum card was linked to my primary account. He had never once seen the real bills, not for the apartment, not for the private school tuition, not for the lease on his black SUV. I wasn't a mother. I was a heartbeat with a cash dispenser. And today, the cash dispenser was doing a full recall. My finger hovered over the family access management icon. 2 names listed, Deshaun Johnson and Keisha Johnson. Credit limits? Unlimited. I almost smiled. Boundless love had converted to a limitless credit line, and they had assumed it always would be. I pressed Edit. Full credit limit. I erased the infinity symbol and typed a single number, 0. Then I moved to current transactions. There it was, the largest charge of the day, $25,000, resort prepayment, posted 2 hours ago as a family gift. In banking terms, that meant I had voluntarily covered expenses for third parties. I pressed Dispute Transaction. From the drop-down, I selected Unauthorized Overdraft, Expense Misclassification. The system flagged a warning. Changing this category will result in immediate withdrawal of bank guarantees to the merchant. The amount will be billed directly to the supplemental cardholder as a personal debt. Are you sure? I looked out the window. The plane had lifted from the earth, carrying them toward the paradise they had stolen. Yes, I said aloud, and pressed Confirm. The screen flashed green. Changes accepted. Supplemental card access terminated. I knew exactly what would happen next. I could see it as clearly as if I were sitting in the seat beside them. Somewhere up there at 30,000 feet, a flight attendant was rolling the beverage cart with a practiced smile. In business class, drinks come with the ticket, but Deshaun always liked to order something special, something off-menu, to impress whoever was watching. "A bottle of Cristal, please," he would have said, casually extending the platinum card. Keisha was probably already posing with a flute, and Miss Loretta was loudly praising the service for the benefit of nearby passengers. The attendant inserted the card. 1 moment of processing. Deshaun smiled, savoring the first taste of freedom from maternal oversight. The terminal beeped, short, ugly. A red indicator. "I'm sorry, sir. The transaction was declined. The card has been blocked." "That's ridiculous." Deshaun would have laughed it off, waving a hand. "The chit must have glitched. Try again or enter it manually. There's no limit on that card." She tried again. Same result. "Sir, the bank is blocking the transaction. We'll need another form of payment."
The smile slid off Deshawn's face. He dug into his wallet and produced the backup card, the one I had given Keisha for household expenses. "Try this one." The attendant took it. Another pause. Another beep. Declined. "Sir, insufficient funds."
"That's a bank error," Deshawn's voice cracked. "I'll be filing a complaint. I have hundreds of thousands in that account." "I'm afraid I cannot provide service, sir." The attendant retrieved the bottle from the cart. "And I'll need you to settle the items you've already opened in cash, or we'll have a conversation with the crew upon landing." I finished my Hennessy in one clean swallow, the bite of the liquor finally matching the sharpness of my intentions. The plane had become a pinprick in the sky. Their flight had barely begun, and they were already falling. I settled the tab in cash, tipped well, and headed out of the airport. My phone stayed silent. There was no signal at altitude, which gave me a few more hours of blissful quiet. I drove my car out of long-term parking and headed slowly toward home. The interior smelled of leather and my own perfume, but I could already feel the phantom warmth of tropical salt air that I'd never get to breathe. I knew exactly what was happening on the other side of the world, at Malay Airport. They had landed. Deshawn, Keisha, the children, and Miss Loretta had stepped out of the cool cabin into the enveloping heat of the Maldives. After the card incident on the plane, their mood was soured but not yet broken. Deshawn, a master of self-deception, had convinced himself it was a security glitch, something I would fix as soon as I noticed the missed calls. They cleared passport control and made their way to the Azure Bay transfer desk. Guests of that caliber were usually greeted with chilled lemongrass towels and fresh coconuts. A captain in a white uniform was supposed to personally collect their luggage, but this time the captain stood with his arms crossed, eyes on his tablet. "Mr. Deshawn," he said, making no effort at a welcoming smile. "Yes, that's us." Keisha tried to glide forward, adjusting her wide-brimmed hat. "We had a terrible misunderstanding on the plane, but we're so happy to finally—" "Your reservation has been canceled," the captain said without looking up. Silence. The sounds of arriving tourists, the splash of water at the dock, all of it suddenly deafening. "What do you mean canceled?" Deshawn tried to put some authority in his voice and failed. "Do you know who my mother is? Claudette Maid Johnson." The primary account holder, Madame Claudette, revoked authorization 40 minutes ago. The captain finally looked at them. His eyes held the tired resignation of a man who'd seen too many wealthy idlers watch their credit cards turn back into pumpkins. "I cannot take you aboard. The launch is for confirmed guests only." "You have no right!" Keisha's voice arose, drawing stares from the line behind them. "I will sue. This is outrageous. We have children. You are required to take us." "I am required to follow the instructions of the bank and the resort, ma'am," the captain said flatly. He turned to the next group of guests, gave them the smile he had withheld from Deshawn, and gestured them aboard. "Welcome to paradise." Miss Loretta, who had been quietly fanning herself with a brochure, let out a groan. "It's so hot. Keisha, do something. My heart can't take this. And where is that boat?" Deshawn was jabbing frantically at his phone screen. "Mom won't pick up," he hissed in a panic. "It's ringing, but she won't answer. She's doing it on purpose." "Stubborn old woman," Keisha muttered, kicking her suitcase. "She's just pouting because we didn't bring her. She'll calm down and turn the money back on in an hour. She'll be bored without us." Deshawn wiped sweat from his forehead. "Okay, stay calm. It's a glitch or a mood. We'll get to the resort on our own and sort it out at the front desk. The manager knows me." He scanned the dock for options. Luxury launches from other resorts were pulling away one by one, carrying happy tourists. Only one choice remained. Over there, he pointed to a battered pier crowded with locals and backpackers. Water taxi. It was not a sleek, air-conditioned speedboat with champagne. It was an old ferry that smelled of diesel and fish. Wooden benches, peeling paint, zero personal space. I am not getting on that thing, Miss Loretta declared, wrinkling her nose. We don't have a choice, Mom, Keisha snapped. Get on or stay here. They loaded onto the ferry in the blazing sun. Keisha broke a nail trying to haul her mother's overstuffed suitcase aboard. No porters were included in this experience. The twins were whining, asking for water and the bathroom. Deshawn sat rigid on a hard plank bench, praying that no one he knew was watching. An hour and a half of rolling over swells. Salt spray hit them in the face, ruining Keisha's blowout and Miss Loretta's makeup. When the ferry finally docked at the Azure Bay service pier, far from the grand entrance, they looked like shipwreck survivors. They were not met by a welcome committee with drumming and flower garlands. They were met by the resort manager, Mr. Rashid, holding a folder, wearing an expression that was all business. Mr. Deshawn? A dry nod. We weren't expecting you on this ferry, but since you arrived... Deshawn rushed toward him like a man grabbing a life ring. Thank God, there's been some kind of terrible mistake with the bank. My mother got confused about something. Just give us the villa keys. We'll check in, get cleaned up, and I'll sort out the payment. Rashid didn't move. He opened the folder and produced a single sheet. I'm afraid that's not possible, sir, since the primary club member, Madame Claudette, is not present at check-in. Your reservation terms have been voided. The friends and family discount no longer applies. What? Keisha stopped cold. What difference does it make whether she's here? A significant one, madam. It's a contractual condition. Without her, you are simply walk-in guests. And given that it is peak season, Rashid paused as though savoring the moment, the rate has been recalculated at the current tariff. That is $3,000 per night, paid in advance for your full stay. 3,000? Miss Loretta's eyes went wide. That's highway robbery. One more thing, Rashid added, ignoring Miss Loretta's outcry. Your overwater villa has been released to guests who prepaid. What we have available are 2 standard rooms with a view of the service yard, adjacent to the generator room. Deshawn went pale. He stood on the pier in a shirt soaked through with sweat, listening to the distant hum of a generator, and for the first time seemed to understand that his mother's little move might cost him far more than a ruined vacation. We don't have that kind of cash on us, he whispered. Rashid smiled, politely, coldly. In that case, I can offer you a seat on the return ferry. It departs tomorrow morning. That was it, the end of the illusion, the end of the beautiful life. They stepped out into the suffocating tropical night. The humidity wrapped around them like a wet blanket. Mosquitoes, kept at bay inside the resort's perimeter, ruled freely out here. Miss Loretta suddenly stopped and threw her purse onto the sand. This is all your fault, she jabbed a finger at her daughter. Take Mom along, save a buck on the ticket. That old woman doesn't need to fly anyway. Good plan. Now we're homeless in the Maldives.
You begged for a week straight. Keisha choked on her anger. Oh, I want to see the ocean. Oh, my joints need the warmth. You were the one who suggested taking her ticket. You said, she's old, she won't even notice. I suggested? Miss Loretta stepped forward. You little snake. You were always greedy, just like your father. I warned you, don't cross your mother-in-law before she updates the will. But you said she'll just roll over. Both of you shut up, Deshawn shouted. It was the first time in his life he had ever raised his voice at his mother-in-law. Keisha and Miss Loretta went silent in stunned disbelief. You two cooked this up. I said don't touch Mom's ticket. You talked me into it. You said that? Keisha laughed, and the laugh was ugly. You stood there and mooed like a calf. Yes, Mama, this will be better. You are a coward, Deshawn. You are nothing without your mother's money. She had landed exactly on the truth, and he knew it.
Deshaun pulled out his phone. He dialed my number again, but this time didn't wait for me to answer. He left a voice message. I listened to it 10 minutes later, after I had finished repotting my plant and washed the soil from my hands. His voice trembled, breaking toward a sob. Behind him, the sound of waves and Keisha screaming in the background. "Mom, Mama, please, forgive us. We were idiots. We get it now. We have nowhere to sleep. The kids haven't eaten. Miss Loretta has completely lost her mind. She's screaming at Keisha. Mom, I'm begging you, unblock the cards, even just enough for food, for tickets home. We'll come back and I will make this right, I swear. Cancel the office sale. I'm finished without it. Mama, we are family." Family. A beautiful word. I pressed call. He answered instantly, as though the phone had been pressed to his ear. Mom, thank God. Did you hear it? Did you forgive us?" "Hello, Deshaun." My voice was bright, almost cheerful. "Why are you whispering?" "I stepped away so they couldn't hear. Mom, put everything back the way it was, please." "Put it back?" I made a show of thinking. "But son, you said yourself at the airport the kids love Miss Loretta more. Surely her love keeps them warm. Surely she can feed them." "Mom, don't do this. Miss Loretta is a monster. She only thinks about herself." "Really?" I sounded genuinely surprised. She seemed like the perfect grandmother to me. Energetic, fun, not like me, old and sickly. "By the way, Deshaun, I can't talk long." "Why? What could you possibly be doing at 2 in the morning?" "I'm meeting with a realtor." I lied. The meeting was scheduled for morning, but to him hearing it now was worse than any truth. "Urgent deal. A buyer for forgive me, for my office turned up very quickly. They're offering a good price for a fast close." "No, Mom, no. Don't sell it. That's the end for me." "It's not the end, Deshaun. It's the beginning of your independent life. You always wanted to stand on your own. Here's your chance." "Mom, how do we get home? We don't have return tickets. You canceled them." "Well, Miss Loretta's a resourceful woman. Let her figure something out. Maybe she can sell that gold jewelry of hers. It must be heavy." "Mom." "Good night, son." Or good morning, I've lost track of the time zones. "Oh, and give my regards to Keisha. Tell her I appreciate her concern for my blood pressure. It's perfect right now." I ended the call. My heart was steady. My hands were still. I felt a strange lightness, as if I had finally put down a backpack full of stones I'd been carrying for years. Out there, they were tearing each other apart like crabs in a barrel. And here I was, in the quiet, drinking tea and planning tomorrow. And in that plan, there was no place for any of them. I went to bed, but sleep didn't come. Not from guilt. My conscience had never been cleaner. It was the adrenaline, the same current that had carried me through an entire career, still surging through my blood. I knew the morning show would be even better. They didn't stay on the beach. Of course they didn't. Pride is one thing, but mosquitoes and damp sand have a way of stripping away pretense. They found the cheapest motel near Malay Airport, a dingy room with a ceiling fan instead of air conditioning and cockroaches the size of thumbs. I knew this because Deshaun had sent me a photo of their dinner, foam cups of hot water and instant noodles. In the background, Miss Loretta sat on a sunken mattress with the expression of a deposed empress. The next morning, at precisely 9 o'clock, my phone rang. A video call. Deshaun. I accepted. I was sitting in my favorite armchair in a silk robe with a cup of fresh brewed coffee. Soft jazz played in the background. On the screen appeared a scene that might have moved any mother's heart. Any mother's, but not mine. Not today. Deshaun looked terrible. Unshaved, rings under his eyes, still in the same wrinkled shirt. Beside him, crowding into the frame, sat Keisha. Her face was swollen from crying, but her eyes burned with a hard, determined light. "Claudette May?" Keisha began, not bothering with a greeting. Her voice shook, but she was working to hold it together. "We need to talk, seriously, without the drama." "I'm listening." I took a slow sip of coffee, making no effort to hide my enjoyment of the aroma. Look at this. Keisha jerked the camera around to show the room. Peeling walls, dirty floor, a window with bars. These are not human conditions. The children are sleeping on one mattress with us. Malik has a rash from bug bites. Do you understand what you're doing? You're not punishing us. You're punishing your own grandchildren. I'm not punishing anyone, Keisha, I said evenly. I simply stopped funding your banquet. You are grown adults. You chose to fly without me. You decided who would go. Now you decide where you live. That's called accountability. Accountability? Her voice shot up as she lost control. That's cruelty. You are sadistic. How can you be so heartless? We are family. Family. I set my cup on the table. The soft clink of porcelain on wood cut through the air like a shot. Keisha, let's talk numbers. I love numbers. Unlike people, they never lie. I picked up the notepad I had filled the night before. Over the last 10 years, I invested $2 million into your household, the apartment, the cars, vacations, clothing, the children's school, Deshawn's business. $2 million. Deshawn's shoulders crept toward his ears. In the investment world, Keisha, that's called an underperforming asset. I kept pouring money in, hoping for returns. Not in cash, no, in respect, in love, in care. And what did I receive? You gave my ticket to your mother. 0 return on investment, full default. It's always money with you, Keisha cut in. You measure everything in dollars. What about feelings? Fine, let's talk feelings and your particular brand of care. I shifted my gaze to the screen. Deshawn, do you remember the account we opened 3 years ago, the rainy day fund? You were moving in $1,500 a month from the money I gave you for growth, for the children's future. Yeah, that's untouchable. Untouchable, you say? I looked directly at Keisha. She went pale so fast she nearly blended into the motel wall. Keisha, would you like to tell your husband where that fund is right now? I don't know what you mean, she whispered, looking away. You don't? Funny. I lifted another sheet from my notepad. Bank statement, most recent transaction, 2 weeks ago, $15,000, Louis Vuitton, Pips Plaza. The silence that fell in that motel room was absolute. Even through the screen, I could feel the air solidifying. Deshawn turned his head slowly toward his wife. Keisha, his voice was quiet, terrible. You withdrew money from the children's college fund? Deshawn, listen, she began backing toward the iron bed frame. I just borrowed it. I needed to project a certain image. You yourself want me to look the part. I wanted us to arrive in style. The luggage. Luggage? He was on his feet. You spent college money on luggage? Those same bags sitting in this dump right now? It was an investment in our brand. Our brand. Deshawn grabbed his own head. We're eating instant noodles and you've got $10,000 suitcases. And what about you? Keisha spun into attack mode, cornered. You haven't earned a single dime on your own. You live off Mama's handouts. You're a mama's boy, Deshawn. I'm a mama's boy? You? Stop, I said quietly. They both went still. Deshawn, I addressed my son, now you know the truth. Your wife spent your children's future on handbags. As for me, I'm closing the operation. All powers of attorney revoked. All accounts closed. No more transfers. You are on your own now. Mom, wait! Deshawn lunged at the phone. I'll file for divorce. I'll make everything right. Just get us out of here. Whether you divorce or not is entirely your business, but there will be no money from me. You have 2 hands, 2 feet, and a brain. Use them. You're a businessman, aren't you?" I reached for the end call button. "One more thing, Deshawn. Ask Keisha where the rest of the money went. The total was more than the cost of those bags." Keisha froze. Her eyes darted to the corner of the room, where on a chair draped with newspaper, Miss Loretta sat. The same Miss Loretta who was now chewing a biscuit with suspicious quiet, doing her best not to attract attention. "Mom," Keisha whispered, "you said you needed the money for dental work." Miss Loretta choked on her biscuit. I pressed end call. The screen went dark. I leaned back in my chair. The picture was complete. Keisha had been stealing from Deshawn and from me. Miss Loretta had been stealing from Keisha, a perfect closed loop of parasitism, and I had just cut off their oxygen supply. Now they would start consuming each other in earnest. I hadn't even finished my coffee when my phone lit up, not with a call, but a notification from Marcus. "Claudette May, they posted a video. Check YouTube. Link attached." I opened it. Keisha filled the screen. She sat against the peeling motel wall, hair undone, eyes red from crying, clutching a frightened Zora to her side. The video was titled, "Monster Instead of a Grandmother, How My Mother-in-Law Left Our Children to Die on the Streets. Please help us." Keisha sobbed into the camera, wiping tears with her sleeve. "We're stranded in the Maldives. My mother-in-law, Claudette May Johnson, a well-known Atlanta financier, lured us here under false pretenses and blocked every card we have. She wants us to starve. Look at these children. They haven't eaten a proper meal in 2 days. She's punishing us because we brought my elderly mother along. People, please share this video. Let the world know what kind of monster she is." She turned the camera to Miss Loretta, who immediately struck the pose of a dying swan, hand pressed to heart. "I only wanted to see the ocean one last time, and she destroyed us all." The video had already hit 10,000 views. The comments piled on. "Disgusting! Lock her up! Those poor babies!" The blood rose in my face, not from fear, from fury. They had decided to play dirty. They had chosen to use the children as a human shield. They believed public opinion would force me to surrender. They had forgotten who they were dealing with. I am not some soft-hearted grandmother. I am a CFO who survived the 2008 financial crisis. I know how to absorb a hit. I called Marcus. "You've seen it?" "Seen it. We're already drafting a response. We have every bank statement, every message log, the screenshot of the non-refundable contract you sent them, and this is the good part, security footage from Hartsfield-Jackson showing Keisha handing your passport to the check-in agent. The head of airport security was very cooperative." "Release it," I said. "All of it, with the figures. Let people see the bookkeeping, not the tears." An hour later, Marcus posted the response video on my former firm's official page and blasted a press release to every major outlet that had already picked up Keisha's story. The title was clean and simple. "The Price of a Free Lunch, an Itemized Account." No tears in the video, just facts. Slides backed by bank statements. Monthly household support provided to my son's family, $15,000. Gift purchase of Maldives trip, $45,000. Attempted passenger substitution at the airport, documented on security video. Withdrawal from the Grandchildren's College Fund by Keisha Johnson, designer luggage and cosmetics, $15,000. And as a closing note, a screenshot of Deshawn's text message threatening me after I'd offered to let him buy out the office. The explosion was immediate. The commenters who an hour ago had been calling for my head now turned their pitchforks around. Wait, she's the thief? Miss Loretta was living large on those babies' college money? Claudette May, honey, you are a saint for putting up with them this long." Meanwhile, in a Malay motel room, the final act was playing out. Deshawn, fueled by desperation, had tried to log into his company's management system to pull out whatever funds he could. He was praying I hadn't locked everything. Come on, he muttered, typing in his admin password. The screen flashed red. Access denied. Account suspended at founder's request. Unauthorized login attempt is being logged and reviewed. No! He punched the keyboard. Several keys flew off. She locked everything, all of it. Keisha, reading the new comments flooding in under her own video, dropped her phone. "They hate us," she whispered. "Deshawn, they're calling me a thief. They're calling Miss Loretta a con artist." Miss Loretta, hearing her name, stopped performing cardiac distress. She stood up from the bed. Her face was calm, focused. She walked to her suitcase and began searching quickly through a hidden inner pocket. "Mom," Keisha looked at her with desperate hope. "Do you have a plan?" "I always have a plan," Miss Loretta muttered, pulling out a fat envelope. She opened it. Inside was a thick stack of cash, heavy, substantial, the money Keisha had borrowed from the children's fund and handed over for safekeeping, plus what Miss Loretta had quietly accumulated over years of living on other people's dimes. "Money!" Deshawn's eyes lit up. "Miss Loretta, you saved us. How much is there? Enough for everyone's tickets?" Miss Loretta looked at her son-in-law, then at her daughter. There was no love in her eyes, no pity, only the cold arithmetic of a survivor. "There is $3,000, she said, exactly enough for one economy ticket on the next available flight. "But, Mom, there are 5 of us. We can get the children." "No." Miss Loretta cut her off. She zipped her purse closed and tucked the envelope against her chest. "You'll figure out the children. You're young. You'll earn it somehow. I am an old woman. I cannot be stressed. I'm leaving." You're abandoning us?" Keisha couldn't process it. "Mom, you're abandoning your own grandchildren? You just said you loved them more than life." "Love is love," Miss Loretta said flatly, "but my own life comes first. And frankly, Keisha, you did this. You picked a fight with your mother-in-law. You made this mess. You clean it up." She grabbed her suitcase handle and moved toward the door. "Stop!" Deshawn stepped in front of her. "Give me that money. It's stolen money. It belongs to my children." Miss Loretta sidestepped him neatly and held up a hand, long, sharp nails extended. "Don't you come near me. I'll scream. I'll tell them you hit me. The police here don't play. You want to see the inside of a cell?" Deshawn stepped back. He knew she'd do it. Miss Loretta walked out and let the door bang behind her. A minute later, they heard her haggling with a taxi driver on the street below. Keisha slid down the wall to the floor and howled. Not cried, howled, like a creature that had finally run out of road. Deshawn stood in the center of the room, staring at the closed door, and understood. The bottom he thought they'd hit yesterday had been a false floor. This was the real bottom. They were alone. No money, no roof, a reputation in ruins, and 2 hungry children who were looking at their parents and seeing them, perhaps for the first time, as they truly were, small, weak, and abandoned by every person they had believed was on their side. Back in Atlanta, I looked at the chart on my laptop screen. The reputation index had plummeted deep into negative territory and felt nothing. I was already booking a table for one. 2 weeks had passed. I was standing in Hartsfield-Jackson again, but this time the air felt different. It smelled not of anxiety and obligation. It smelled of good perfume and freedom. I wore a white linen pantsuit and a wide-brimmed hat that shielded my eyes from curious looks. Beside me stood only a neat carry-on. I wasn't waiting by the check-in counter. I was in the VIP lounge where chilled champagne and canapes were offered without being asked. Around me sat women like me, the silver travelers, a group I had discovered almost by accident while browsing the internet on that evening of reckoning. Independent, accomplished, free of family anchors. We were flying to Tuscany, wine tasting and painting lessons. My phone buzzed. I took it from my purse. A message from Deshawn. "Happy birthday, Mom. Sorry it's late. We're home." I didn't open the thread fully. I knew what came next. The complaints, the justifications, the quiet requests for help. I knew the details of their story through Marcus, who had been monitoring the situation to make sure my name was no longer attached to any of it. They had returned 3 days earlier. To get home, they had taken out a loan from some sketchy outfit at punishing interest rates. The real banks had turned Deshawn away because of his damaged credit history. That I could take credit for. They flew back on the cheapest tickets available, 3 layovers each way, 2 days in transit, nights on airport floors. Now they were renting a 2-bedroom in Decatur. My house, the big, bright one where every person had their own room, was on the market, a buyer already down on it. The proceeds had been transferred to my retirement fund, offshore. Keisha had found work as a receptionist at a nail salon, not in Buckhead, somewhere on the periphery. The gel extensions were gone. Deshawn, my successful businessman, was a sales rep at a window installation company. He was learning to talk to people not from a position of power, but from a position of please and thank you. It was a brutal education, a necessary one. Miss Loretta? She had made it back to Atlanta just fine, locked herself in her apartment, changed the locks, and informed her daughter by phone that she would not be receiving any failures at her door. The money borrowed from the grandchildren had been spent at a spa resort in Hot Springs, Arkansas. I looked at Deshawn's message. My finger hovered over reply. What was there to say? Thank you? I'm glad? How are you doing? Any response I gave would become a thread for them to pull, a hope, a chance to start latching on again. I pressed the side button. The screen went dark, reflecting my face back at me. Calm. No crease of worry on my brow. Claudette May? A graceful woman in a linen blazer appeared at my elbow with a glass in hand. It was Tanisha, our group organizer. They've announced boarding. Are you ready? Ready, I said, rising. We walked down the jetway, and each step rang inside me like a bell. I hadn't just saved the money from that first trip. I hadn't merely taught ungrateful people a lesson. I had made the most important investment of my life. I had bought myself back. I had bought the right to silence, the right to be treated with dignity, the right to spend what I had earned on things that brought joy to me, not to people who had been waiting for me to die. The plane climbed. I watched Atlanta become a patchwork quilt below, stitched together by highways. Somewhere down there, in one of those gray rectangles, my son was eating reheated soup and thinking about his next loan payment. Maybe he was angry with me, maybe he hated me, but for the first time in his life, he was living his own life, himself. And maybe, in a year or 5, he would understand that this had been my most valuable gift to him, the gift of reality. A flight attendant appeared at my side with a tray. "Champagne, madam?" "Please," I said. I took the glass. The bubbles caught the sunlight breaking through the clouds. That first trip to the Maldives had cost me $60,000 and a piece of my spirit. This ticket to a new life had cost me nothing but one clear decision, and it was the best deal I had ever made. I took a sip. Italy was ahead. Life was ahead, and it belonged to me alone. Here's a story for you friends. It's harsh, no doubt about that. But fair? That's where opinions will differ. Some might say Claudette May went too far, leaving her own family, including little grandchildren, stranded in a foreign country with no money. After all, the kids didn't deserve to pay for their parents' greed, right? Can such a lesson ever be justified when the innocent suffer? On the other hand, many of you might applaud her decision. How long can you tolerate being treated like an ATM by grown adults who are not only ungrateful, but openly disrespectful to the very hand that feeds them? Claudette and Vinny didn't just close her wallet, she handed responsibility back to them for their own lives. Isn't that what real upbringing is about, even if it's a bit late? What do you think? Did she do the right thing, or should she have forgiven them, given them another chance? After all, it's family. And do you think Deshaun can grow into a real man after such a fall, or will he break completely? Would you like to know what happened to them a year later?